The Great Hall of the Galactic Council was the largest room Daniel Carter had ever seen. Giant pillars of white stone rose so high that their tops disappeared into artificial clouds. Floating platforms carried delegates from 100 different species, each one stranger than the last. Some had scales. Some had tentacles. Some were made of pure light, and all of them were looking down at the small human standing alone on the central floor. Daniel took a deep breath and adjusted. Simple gray uniform. He was 43 years old, with short brown hair turning gray at the edges, and eyes that had seen too many difficult negotiations. But nothing had prepared him for this moment. "Honored delegates," he began, his voice echoing through the massive chamber. "I am Ambassador Daniel Carter, representing the United Earth government. Humanity formally requests full membership in the Galactic Council." For a moment, there was silence. Then a sound started somewhere in the upper platforms. It was a clicking noise, like stones being tapped together. Then came whistles from another section. Then deep, rumbling sounds from another. Daniel did not need his translator device to understand what was happening. They were laughing at him. High Arbiter Zelox leaned forward from his throne at the highest platform. He was an insectoid creature, nearly 3 meters tall, with 4 arms and eyes that reflected light like broken glass. His mandibles clicked as he spoke, and the translator turned his words into something Daniel could understand. "Little human," Zelox said. "Do you know how long most species wait before they are considered for membership?" "I am aware of the general timeline," Daniel replied, keeping his voice steady. The Velthari waited 10,000 years. The Morphax waited 8,000. The youngest species ever admitted to this council waited 3,000 years. Zelox made a sound that might have been amusement. "Your kind has been traveling between stars for less than 200 years. You are infants, babies taking their first steps. And you dare to ask for a seat among the ancient powers of the galaxy?" More laughter filled the chamber. Daniel felt his face grow warm, but he did not look away from the High Arbiter. "With respect, High Arbiter, humanity has met every requirement listed in the Council's charter for membership consideration. We have achieved faster than light travel. We have established peaceful contact with more than 15 species. We have shared our medical technology freely. We have asked for nothing in return. Requirements are the minimum standard," said another voice. This one belonged to Delegate Serana of the Veltharian hegemony. She was humanoid in shape but taller, with silver skin that seemed to glow from within and eyes that held no pupils. "Meeting requirements does not make you worthy. It simply means you are not completely primitive." Daniel turned to face her. "Then what does make a species-worthy delegate?" "Time," Serana said simply. "Patience. The wisdom that comes only from existing for ages beyond your comprehension. Your species is violent, emotional, unpredictable. We have watched your history, human. Your wars against each other. Your cruelty. Your destruction of your own world's environment. These are not the qualities of a mature civilization. We have also shown the ability to change," Daniel said. "To learn from our mistakes? To grow. Growth takes time," said another voice. This one came from a floating crystal that pulsed with inner light. "Observer Kethrel," Daniel remembered. "A being of pure energy. Perhaps in another 1,000 years you will be ready for this conversation. Perhaps 10,000. There is no rush. The universe is patient." Daniel looked around the chamber. Everywhere he looked, he saw the same expression. Contempt, amusement, the kind of look an adult might give a child who demands to be treated as an equal. He had seen this look before in boardrooms and government offices back on Earth, the look of power that did not need to explain itself. He glanced at the holographic display beside him, where Captain Lisa Morgan watched from the bridge of her ship in orbit above. She was 51 years old, with short gray hair and the calm expression of someone who had spent 30 years in space. She gave him a small nod. Daniel turned back to face the council. "I have a question for the honored delegates," he said. "In the 400 years since this council was founded, how many species have been granted membership on their first petition?" The laughter stopped. Silence fell over the chamber like a heavy blanket. Zelox's mandibles clicked uncertainly. "That information is not relevant to the matter at hand." "I believe it is extremely relevant," Daniel said. Because I have researched your records. In 400 years, not a single species has ever been accepted on their first petition. Not one. Every species that eventually gained membership was rejected at least 3 times before being approved. Some were rejected dozens of times over thousands of years. Your point? Sirana asked, her voice cold. My point is that this is not a genuine evaluation process. It is a ritual. A hazing ceremony designed to remind younger species of their place. You never intended to accept humanity's petition today. You never intended to give us a fair hearing. This entire proceeding is theater. The chamber erupted in angry voices. Delegates shouted in languages Daniel could not understand. Zelox rose from his throne, his forearms spread wide. You insult the dignity of this council? The High Arbiter roared. You come to us begging for acceptance, and then dare to criticize our sacred traditions. Daniel did not flinch. I came here hoping for fairness. I found something else. And for that, I thank you. Thank us. Sirana asked, confused. Yes, you have shown me exactly what the Galactic Council truly is. A club for the old and powerful, designed to keep everyone else in their place. Humanity has wasted enough time trying to join your club. He turned and began walking toward the exit. Where do you think you were going? Zelox demanded. This session is not concluded. Daniel stopped at the doorway. He did not turn around. When he spoke, his voice was quiet but clear enough for every translator in the room to capture. Humanity withdraws its petition for council membership. Permanently. We will not return to this chamber. We will not ask again. We will find our own way. Then he walked through the door and was gone. The chamber fell silent. For a long moment, no one moved. Then Kethral's crystal form pulsed with an emotion that might have been concern. That was unexpected, the observer said. It means nothing, Zelox declared, settling back onto his throne. They will be back. They always come back. Where else can they go? Sirana nodded in agreement. He was simply throwing a tantrum. In a year, perhaps 2, they will return with apologies and a new petition. They have no choice. But Observer Kethrel was not so certain. Something in the human's voice had troubled him. There had been no anger in Daniel Carter's words, no frustration, no wounded pride. There had only been calm certainty, the certainty of someone who had already made a decision and would not change his mind. I hope you are right, Kethrel said quietly. But I fear you may be wrong. No one in the chamber paid attention to the warning. They were too busy laughing again, sharing jokes about the foolish humans, who thought they deserved to stand among the stars. They did not know that they would never see Daniel Carter in that chamber again. They did not know that humanity had already begun planning for this exact outcome. They did not know that in a few short years, they would stop laughing entirely, but they would learn. 6 months passed after, Daniel Carter walked out of the council chamber, and the galaxy waited for humanity to come crawling back. They always came back. Every species that had ever stormed out of the council in anger eventually returned. Some took a few months. Some took a few years. But they always returned, apologizing for their outburst and asking for another chance. The council was the center of galactic civilization. No species could survive without its trade networks, its protection, its approval. But humanity did not return. The human embassy on Council Station closed without any announcement. One morning, the diplomats were there, and the next morning, they were gone. Their offices were empty. Their files had been deleted. Even the furniture had been removed. Trade Minister Vexanar of the Krillian Dominion was the first to try reaching out. He sent a message to Earth, offering to help negotiate a new petition to the Council. The response came within hours. We appreciate your kind offer. However, humanity is no longer interested in Council membership. We wish you well in your future endeavors. That was all. No explanation. No anger. Just polite refusal. Other Council members tried as well. The Veltharians offered favorable trade terms. The Morthax suggested a military alliance. Even High Arbiter Zelox himself sent a private message. hinting that perhaps the council had been too harsh and that a new petition might receive more favorable consideration. Every message received the same response. Polite, brief, final, Admiral Patricia. Holt stood on the bridge of the carrier's steadfast resolve, watching the construction yards of Alpha Centauri through the main view screen. She was 62 years old, with iron-gray hair cut short and a face that rarely smiled. She had spent her entire adult life in Earth's military, rising from a young ensign to the commander of humanity's entire space fleet. Status report, she said. Commander Kevin Marsh approached with a data tablet. He was a young man, barely 30, but he had proven himself capable and... Elizabeth nodded, acknowledging the fair question. You do not know. Not yet. Trust must be earned over time. All I can tell you is this. We are not offering charity. We are not offering protection. We are offering partnership. If that partnership fails, it will hurt us as much as it hurts you. Our fates will be linked. It was a risk. Elizabeth knew that. Humanity knew that. They were betting everything on the hope that enough species shared their frustration with the Council's arrogance. Back on Council Station, the delegates grew increasingly uncomfortable. Reports came in about human activity across the galaxy, but they could not quite understand what Taloyal... The new shipyard is operating at full capacity, Admiral. We are producing 3 new vessels per month. The Centauri Mining Corporation has increased our extraction by 40% to meet our needs. Weapon systems? The new plasma cannons are performing above expectations in testing. The shield generators are still giving us some trouble, but Dr. Elizabeth Stone believes she will have the problems solved within the month. Patricia nodded slowly. And the Council's reaction? They are watching us, Admiral. Their spy drones are everywhere, but they do not seem concerned. Their reports describe our activities as the temper tantrum of a child species. Good. Let them think that. Patricia had been preparing for this moment for years. Long before Daniel Carter's petition to the Council, she had known it would be rejected. She had studied the Council's history. She had analyzed their patterns, and she had understood that humanity would never be accepted through polite requests and patient waiting. The Council respected only one thing: power, not the power to destroy, though that mattered too. The power to exist without them. The power to say no and mean it. The power to walk away and not look back. That was what Patricia was building. Not just a fleet of warships, though she was building that too. She was building the infrastructure for humanity to stand completely alone if necessary. New colonies. New trade routes. New alliances with species that the Council had ignored or rejected. Captain. Lisa Morgan entered the bridge and approached the Admiral. She was now 43 years old, and the years of service had added lines to her face, but not diminished the sharpness in her eyes. I have news from the Outer Reaches report. The Voth Collective has agreed to our trade proposal. They will supply rare minerals in exchange for our medical technology. They have also expressed interest in a mutual defense agreement. Patricia allowed herself a small smile. Excellent. The Voth have been ignored by the Council for centuries. They are exactly the kind of ally we need. There is more, Lisa continued. The Kalari nomads have reached out. They have heard about our departure from the Council and want to know more about our plans. Set up a meeting. I want to speak with their leadership personally. The Kalari were a proud species who traveled the galaxy in massive generation ships. They had never applied for Council membership, because they had never stayed in one place long enough to meet the residency requirements. The Council treated them as homeless wanderers, not worthy of attention. Patricia saw them differently. She saw a species with thousands of years of experience navigating the spaces between the great powers. A species that knew every secret trade route, every hidden supply depot, every forgotten corner of the galaxy where the Council's authority did not reach. Over the following months, humanity reached out to dozens of such species. The forgotten, the rejected, the overlooked, species that had been waiting for centuries for someone to treat them as equals. And they found humanity waiting with open arms. Dr. Elizabeth Stone became the face of this new diplomatic effort. She was 55 years old, silver-streaked hair and a warm smile that could put even the most suspicious alien at ease. She traveled from world to world, station to station, explaining humanity's vision. "We are not asking you to fight the Council," she would say. "We are not trying to start a war. We are simply offering an alternative, a network of equals, trading and cooperating without asking permission from anyone." Some species were suspicious. They had been disappointed before. Promises had been broken. "How do we know you will not betray us?" asked Elder Crix of the Voth, a squat creature covered in thick purple scales. "How do we know you will not use us and throw us away once you have what you want?" "Hey, we're seeing. They're making trade agreements," Sirana reported to the Council. "But not with any significant powers. Only minor species. No bodies." "Then it is irrelevant," Xelox declared. "Let them play their games with the lesser races. When they need real resources, real protection, they will come to us." Observer Kethril remained silent during these discussions. But privately, the energy being was growing concerned. The pattern of human activity was too organized to be random. They were building something. Something that existed entirely outside Council control. And the Council, in its arrogance, refused to see it. 1 year after Daniel Carter's departure, the human network included 12 species. 2 years later, it included 23. Each new member brought resources, knowledge, and connections that made the network stronger. The Council finally began paying serious attention when they realized that human trade. Ships were appearing in sectors they had never visited before, carrying goods they should not have had access to, supported by allies they should not have had. "How is this possible?" demanded Fleet Admiral Morthax, commander of the most powerful military force in Council space. "They are children. They should be dependent on us." But the children had learned to walk on their own, and they were learning to run. Patricia Holt stood on her bridge, watching the latest reports scroll across her screen. The network was growing faster than even she had hoped. More species were reaching out every month. The dream of a galaxy not controlled by the Council was becoming real. Admiral Kevin said, "We've received another complaint from the Morthax Collective. They claim we are encroaching on their territory in the Kepler sector." Patricia smiled. "Let them complain. We operate within our legal rights. If they want to do something about it, they are welcome to try." She knew the confrontation was coming. She had always known it would come. The Council would not allow their authority to be challenged forever. Eventually, they would push back. When they did, humanity would be ready. 3 years after humanity walked out of the Galactic Council, the galaxy began to change in ways no one had predicted. The Terran Cooperative, as it came to be called, now included 34 different species. Some were small, with only a few colony worlds. Others were large, with populations in the billions. All of them shared one thing in common. They had been ignored, rejected, or mistreated by the Council for too long. Dr. Elizabeth Stone stood before a crowd of delegates on the planet New Geneva, humanity's largest colony world. Behind her, a holographic map of the galaxy rotated slowly, showing the spread of the cooperative in blue light. The blue spots were everywhere now, scattered across the galaxy like stars in the night sky. "We are not here to replace the Council," Elizabeth explained, her voice carrying across the Grand Assembly Hall. "We are here to offer something different. A partnership based on mutual respect. Every species has one vote. Every species has equal access to shared resources. Every species can speak and be heard." Kalari delegate raised her hand. She was tall and thin, covered in golden feathers that shifted colors as she moved. "The Council will not allow this to continue. They see us as a threat to their power." "They are correct," Elizabeth admitted. "We are a threat to their power. But we are not a threat to peace. We seek no war with the Council. We simply refuse to live under their rules any longer. And if they attack us," Elizabeth paused before answering, "then we will defend ourselves. Together." The word "together" meant more than it might have seemed. For thousands of years, smaller species had faced the Council alone. When the Morthax demanded tribute, each species had to choose between paying or being crushed. When the Veltharians seized territory, there was no one to help the victims. The Council's power came not just from their military strength, but from the fact that no one ever stood together against them. The Terran Cooperative changed that. An attack on one member would be treated as an attack on all members. 34 species, standing together, sharing technology and resources and military support. It was unprecedented. It was dangerous. And it was working. Captain Lisa Morgan commanded the Horizon's Edge as part of the Cooperative's growing fleet. Her ship had been upgraded with technology from half a dozen different species. Voth armor plating, Kalari navigation systems, human weapons, Seek sensor arrays. It was not beautiful, but it was powerful. She stood on her bridge, watching the latest reports from across the cooperative network. Status of the fleet, Commander Griffin. Paul Griffin, her first officer, checked his display. He was 32 years old now. With the calm efficiency of someone who had grown up during humanity's expansion into space. 47 combat vessels, Captain. Another 12 under construction. The Voth have contributed 3 heavy cruisers. The Sikhs have provided 2 destroyer squadrons and the Council fleet. Over 2,000 combat vessels, Captain, plus support ships and defensive platforms. Lisa nodded slowly. The numbers were not encouraging. If the Council decided to attack with full force, the cooperative fleet would be overwhelmed. They could not win a direct war. But Lisa had learned something important. During her years in space, wars were not always won by the side with the most ships. The Council has not fought a real war in centuries, she said. Their fleets are designed for intimidation, not combat. They have never faced an enemy willing to fight to the last ship. Do you think it will come to that? Paul asked. I hope not. But if it does, we will make them pay such a price that they will think twice before attacking anyone else. Out on the Council station. Observer Cathrell requested a private meeting with High Arbiter Xylox. The energy being's crystalline form pulsed with agitation as it entered the Arbiter's private chambers. We have underestimated them, Cathrell said without greeting. The humans are not throwing a tantrum. They are building a genuine alternative to Council authority. Xylox's mandibles clicked dismissively. They are gathering a collection of nobodies. Species with no power, no influence, no significance. When this childish rebellion collapses, they will all come crawling back. Will they? Cathrell asked. I have analyzed the economic data. The Terran Cooperative's combined trade volume has increased by 800% in 3 years. Their industrial output is growing faster than any power in Council space. If this continues for another decade, they will rival us in economic strength. Impossible. I thought so too. But look at these figures. Cathrell projected a holographic display showing production statistics, trade flows, and population growth. They are not building a rebellious faction. They are building a civilization. Xylox studied the display for a long moment. His compound eyes flickered as he processed the information. Even if this is true, they cannot match our military power. Not yet. But they are learning. Every species that joins them brings new technology, new knowledge. The humans are surprisingly good at combining different technologies into something greater than the sum of its parts. Their ships are becoming more dangerous with each passing year. Then we must act before they become too strong, Xylox said. I will speak with Fleet Admiral Morthax. A show of force is required. A show of force against whom? Cathrell asked. The cooperative has violated no laws. They operate entirely within their legal rights, under the Council's own charter. If we attack them without cause, we become the aggressors. Other species will see that. The very species we have dominated for centuries will see that the Council fears what the humans are building. Xylox was silent for a long moment. The observer had touched on something painful. For all its power, the Council's authority rested on the assumption that there was no alternative. If that assumption broke, species began to believe they could survive outside the Council's control, the entire structure could collapse. Then what do you suggest? Xylox finally asked. I suggest we watch. Wait. And perhaps, if we are wise, we will find a way to deal with the humans that does not involve destruction. But Cathrall knew that wisdom was rare among the Council's leadership. They had grown too accustomed to their power. They could not imagine losing it. On New Geneva, Daniel Carter met with the Cooperative's Leadership Council. Elizabeth Stone was there, along with Admiral Patricia Holt, Captain Lisa Morgan, and representatives from a dozen allied species. The Morthacs are mobilizing, Patricia reported. Our intelligence suggests they are preparing a fleet action in the Kepler sector. Are mining operations there? Daniel said. They have been claiming that territory as their own. Claims based on a survey they conducted 2,000 years ago and never followed up on, Elizabeth pointed out. Under the Council's own laws, that territory is unclaimed. Laws mean nothing when the strong decide to ignore them, said Elder Crix of the Voth. Morthacs have destroyed species for less. Daniel nodded slowly. Then we must be prepared to defend ourselves. Admiral Holt, what forces can we commit to the Kepler sector? 62 combat vessels, Patricia replied. Our best ships and crews. It is not enough to defeat a full Morthacs fleet, but it is enough to make them bleed. Will they attack? Asked High Speaker Vera of the Kaleri, her golden feathers rippling with concern. I do not know, Daniel admitted. The Morthacs have been the Council's enforcers for centuries. They are used to species surrendering at the first show of force. They have never faced someone willing to fight back. Then perhaps it is time they learned what that feels like, Patricia said. The room fell silent. Everyone understood what the Admiral was suggesting. A confrontation with the Morthacs would not just be a battle over mining rights, it would be a test of everything the Cooperative had built. If they backed down, other species would lose faith in the alliance. If they fought and lost, the Cooperative might be destroyed. But if they fought and won, even a symbolic victory, everything would change. We did not build this alliance to hide from confrontation, Daniel finally said. We built it to stand together when confrontation came. Admiral Holt, take the fleet to Kepler. Defend our operations. And if the Morthacs want to fight, give them one they will never forget. Patricia smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. With pleasure, Ambassador, the Cooperative fleet departed New Geneva 3 days later. 62 ships of different designs, crewed by beings from a dozen different species, united by a common purpose. They were outnumbered, they were outgunned, and they were not afraid. The galaxy watched and waited to see what would happen when the children finally stood up to the giants. The Morthacs. Fleet emerged from hyperspace like a swarm of angry insects. 800 warships, each one bristling with weapons, their dark hulls designed to inspire terror in anyone who saw them. For 2,000 years, sight of a Morthacs fleet had meant one thing: surrender or die. Admiral Patricia Holt watched them arrive from the bridge of the Steadfast Resolve. Her 62 ships were arranged in a defensive formation around the mining stations of the Kepler sector. They looked tiny compared to the approaching armada. All ships reporting ready, Admiral, Commander Kevin Marsh reported. Weapons charged. Shields at full power. It's very good, Patricia said. Her voice was calm, almost casual, as if she were discussing the weather rather than facing a fleet that could. Destroy them many times over? The main view screen flickered as an incoming transmission was detected. Patricia nodded, and the image of Fleet Admiral Graxthorne appeared before her. He was a massive creature, even by Morthac standards, the armored plates covering his body and weapons grafted directly into his forearms. His eyes, dozens of small black orbs clustered together, focused on Patricia with obvious contempt. Human Commander Graxthorne said, his voice deep and rumbling. You will withdraw your forces from this sector immediately. This is Morthac's territory. You have no right to be here. Patricia studied the alien admiral for a moment before responding. Fleet Admiral Graxthorne, I am required by protocol to inform you of the following. The Kepler sector has been classified as unclaimed territory under Article 7 of the Galactic Council's Charter. Our operations here are entirely legal. We will not withdraw. Legal? Graxthorne made a sound that might have been laughter. The Morthacs claimed this sector 2,000 years before your species learned to make fire. Your laws mean nothing. Council's own laws state that territorial claims must be maintained through active presence, Patricia replied. You conducted one survey 2 millennia ago and never returned. By every legal standard that exists, this territory is free for development by whoever arrives first. Legal standards exist for the weak, Graxthorn said. The strong make their own rules. I give you one final warning, human. Withdraw now, or I will destroy every ship and every station in this sector. Patricia leaned forward slightly. Fleet Admiral, I have a question for you. In the 2,000 years since the Morthax became the Council's enforcers, how many times have you actually fought a battle? Graxthorn's eyes flickered with confusion. What? How many times have you engaged an enemy that was willing to fight back? Not species that surrendered at the first threat. Not rebellions you crushed before they could organize. A real battle against a real enemy, where the outcome was in doubt. The Morthax Admiral was silent for a moment. Your point? My point is this. You are very good at intimidation. Your ships are designed to look terrifying. Your reputation is built on thousands of years of unopposed dominance. But I wonder if anyone in your fleet actually knows how to fight. Patricia's voice remained calm, but there was steel beneath the words. Today you will find out. Because we are not going to surrender. We are not going to withdraw. If you want this sector, you will have to take it from us. And we will make you pay for every kilometer of space. Graxthorn's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of agitation. You have 60 ships. I have 800. You cannot win. Perhaps not, Patricia admitted. But consider what happens if you attack. Win or lose, word will spread across the galaxy. Every species that has ever trembled at the sight of a Morthax fleet will know that someone finally stood and fought. Every species that has paid tribute out of fear will wonder if they should do the same. Is that what you want? Is one mining sector worth the risk of inspiring a galaxy full of resistance? The transmission went silent. Patricia watched the Morthax Admiral's face, looking for any sign of his thoughts. The alien's expression was difficult to read, but she thought she saw something flicker in those clustered eyes. Doubt, perhaps? Or calculation. On the other cooperative ships, crews waited tensely. Voth gunners sat ready at their weapons. Colliery navigators prepared emergency jump coordinates. Human officers checked and rechecked their systems. Every being in the fleet knew they were likely facing death. Requested to leave, the silence stretched on for seconds that felt like hours. Then Graxthorn spoke again. You are bluffing, human. You cannot possibly believe you can defeat us. I do not need to defeat you, Patricia said. I only need to hurt you. I only need to prove that attacking the Terran Cooperative comes at a cost. Every ship you lose today is a ship you cannot use tomorrow. Every crew member who dies is someone who will never threaten anyone else. And when this battle is over, win or lose, the galaxy will know that the Morthax are not invincible. She paused, letting the words sink in. So the question is not whether we can defeat you. The question is whether you are willing to pay the price of this victory. 800 ships against 62. You will win, probably. But how many of those 800 ships will still be flying when the battle is over? How many thousands of your warriors will die? Is this sector worth that cost? Graxthorn said nothing. The transmission remained open. Both fleets facing each other across the void in the council chamber. Delegates watched the confrontation through long-range sensors. The tension in the room was suffocating. No one spoke. No one moved. She is insane, Sirana whispered. She is actually willing to die for a mining operation. Not for the mining operation, Observer Kethril said quietly. For the principle, for the right to exist without permission, that is what makes them dangerous. They care about things more than they care about survival. High Arbiter? Xylox watched in silence, his mandibles still. The standoff continued. Minutes passed, then an hour, then to hours. Neither fleet moved. Neither commander blinked. Finally, Graxthorn spoke again. His voice was different now. The contempt was still there, but something else had joined it. Respect, perhaps. Or frustration. This is not over, human. I did not expect it to be, Patricia replied. The Morthax do not forget, and we do not forgive. Neither do humans. Graxthorn's image flickered and disappeared. A moment later, The Morthax fleet began to turn. 800 ships, the most feared military force in the galaxy. Moving away from the confrontation they had been certain to win. On the bridge of the steadfast resolve, there was no celebration, no cheering. Patricia simply watched the enemy fleet retreat until they disappeared into hyperspace. "Stand down from battle stations," she said quietly. "Maintain defensive positions until we are certain they are not returning." Commander Marsh approached her. "Admiral, that was incredible. You actually made them back down." "I gave them an excuse to back down without losing face," Patricia corrected. "They can tell themselves they chose not to waste resources on an unimportant sector. They can pretend this was strategic wisdom rather than retreat. But everyone in the galaxy saw what really happened. What really happened." Patricia allowed herself a small smile. Someone finally said no. And the Morthax discovered that no is a very difficult word to argue with. News of the confrontation spread across the galaxy within hours. The Morthax retreat was analyzed, debated, and celebrated by species who had spent centuries living in fear. If the Morthax could be faced down by 62 ships, perhaps they were not as invincible as everyone had believed. Applications to join the Terran Cooperative doubled within a month, then tripled. Species that had been hesitant suddenly found their courage. Species that had been waiting to see if the cooperative was real finally had their answer. On the council station, an emergency session was called. But for the first time in anyone's memory, the delegates did not know what to say. Their enforcer had failed. Their reputation for invincibility had cracked. And the humans, the children they had laughed at and dismissed, had proven something that no one could deny. The galaxy was changing, and there was nothing the council could do to stop it. The message arrived on a quiet morning. For years after Daniel Carter had walked out of the Galactic Council chamber, Daniel sat in his office on New Geneva, reading the words for the third time. Outside his window, the capital city hummed with activity. Humans walked alongside Voth and Kalari and a dozen other species, going about their daily lives in a city that had become the unofficial capital of the Terran Cooperative. Elizabeth Stone entered without knocking. She had known Daniel long enough to skip formalities. "Is it real?" Daniel nodded slowly. "The council wants to talk. They have proposed a meeting on neutral ground. No preconditions. After everything they have done, they want to negotiate. It appears so." Daniel set the message aside and looked out the window. Observer Cathrell has been working behind the scenes. From what our intelligence reports say, Cathrell convinced the other council leaders that they have no choice. The cooperative now includes 51 species. Our combined economy is nearly equal to theirs. And after the Kepler confrontation, no one wants to test our military resolve. Elizabeth sat down across from him. "Do you trust them?" "Not at all. But refusing to meet would make us look unreasonable. And there is a chance, however small, that something useful could come from this." "What do you want to come from this?" Daniel was quiet for a long moment. "I want what I always wanted. A galaxy where every species can exist without begging for permission. A system based on partnership instead of dominance. Real change, not just new words over old injustice. That is a lot to ask from people who have held power for centuries. But we have to try. Otherwise, what was any of this for?" The meeting took place on a space station built specifically for the occasion. It orbited a dying star in unclaimed territory, constructed by engineers from both the Council and the Cooperative. A place that belonged to no one and everyone. Daniel arrived alone, as agreed. He walked through corridors of polished metal and soft lighting, till he reached the conference room at the station's heart. 3 figures waited for him. High Arbiter Xylox, his insectoid form somehow smaller than Daniel remembered. Delegate Serana, her silver skin dimmed with what might have been age or stress. And Observer Cathrall, the energy being's crystal shell pulsing with cautious hope. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Xylox broke the silence. His voice was quieter than before, stripped of its earlier arrogance. "Ambassador Carter, thank you for coming, High Arbiter." Daniel took his seat across from them. "I admit I did not expect to receive this invitation. Or did we expect to send it?" Serena said. But circumstances have changed. They have, Daniel agreed. Though I am curious what specific circumstances prompted this meeting. Kethral's form flickered. The council is facing a choice. We can continue on our current path, watching the cooperative grow, while our own influence shrinks. Eventually, the council will become irrelevant, a collection of aging powers clinging to traditions that no longer matter. Or we can adapt, change, find a new way forward. And you have chosen adaptation? Some of us have, Xylox said. His mandibles clicked slowly, a sign Daniel had learned to recognize as discomfort. Others resist. But enough council members have accepted the reality of our situation that we are authorized to negotiate. Awas. Daniel leaned back in his chair. Then let us negotiate. What is the council proposing? Cyrena spoke carefully. We propose a formal partnership between the Galactic Council and the Terran Cooperative. Trade agreements. Mutual recognition. Shared authority over disputed territories. In exchange, we ask that the cooperative stop actively recruiting species away from council membership. You want us to stop growing? We want to stop the bleeding, Xylox admitted bluntly. Every month, more species leave the council to join your alliance. If this continues, there will be no council left. Daniel nodded slowly, as if considering the proposal. Then he shook his head. That is not acceptable, Ambassador. Be reasonable, Cyrena said. We are offering a significant compromise. You are offering to preserve the current system with minor modifications. That is not what we want. Daniel's voice remained calm, but firm. The problem is not that the cooperative exists. The problem is why it exists. Species joined us because the council treated them as inferior. Because your membership requirements were designed to keep them waiting forever. Because your power structures rewarded the old and punished the young. We cannot change thousands of years of tradition overnight, Xylox protested. No one is asking you to change overnight, but you have to change. The cooperative did not create this crisis. Your own arrogance did. And if you want it to end, you have to address the root cause. What exactly are you proposing? Kethral asked. Daniel stood and walked to the window, looking out at the dying star beyond. I propose a merger. Not the council absorbing the cooperative, or the cooperative replacing the council. Something new. A reformed galactic government where every species has an equal voice from day one. Impossible, Cyrena said immediately. The founding species would never accept being equal to newcomers. Then the founding species will have to accept that the alternative is worse. Because the cooperative will keep growing. We will keep offering something the council cannot respect. And eventually, you will find yourselves alone, surrounded by a galaxy that no longer needs you. The negotiations lasted 3 months. There were arguments, walkouts, moments when it seemed everything would collapse. But slowly, painfully, an agreement took shape. The reformed galactic government would not have tiers of membership. Any species that achieved interstellar travel would be granted immediate voting rights. Leadership positions would rotate among all members. The old power structures would be dismantled, replaced by councils of equals. Not everyone was happy. Many of the older species grumbled about losing their privileged positions. Some refused to participate at all and retreated to their own territories. But enough agreed that the alternative was worse. On the day the new charter was signed, Daniel stood in the reformed council chamber. The room looked different now. The platforms were arranged in a circle instead of a hierarchy. The lighting was warm instead of intimidating. Representatives from over 100 species filled the chamber. It's more than had ever gathered in one place before. Admiral Patricia Holt stood beside him, her gray hair now completely white. Captain Lisa Morgan was there too, promoted to admiral herself after years of distinguished service. Elizabeth Stone, who had done more than anyone to build the alliances that made this day possible, and representatives from every cooperative species standing alongside their former rivals. You know, this is just the beginning, Patricia said quietly. The real work starts now. Daniel nodded. I know. There will be setbacks, betrayals, moments when we wonder if any of this was worth the effort. but it is better than the alternative. A galaxy divided by fear and resentment would eventually destroy itself. At least this way, we have a chance to build something better. High Arbiter Zelox approached them. The old insectoid moved slowly now, weighed down by age, and the burden of accepting change he had once thought impossible. Ambassador Carter Zelox said, "The Reformed Council is ready to begin its first session. As one of the architects of this new order, we would like you to speak first." Daniel glanced at his colleagues. Patricia gave him a rare smile. Lisa nodded encouragingly. Elizabeth simply gestured toward the central platform. He walked to the center of the chamber, just as he had 4 years ago. But this time, there was no laughter, only silence and anticipation, and perhaps the faintest glimmer of hope. "Thank you, High Arbiter," Daniel said. "Honored delegates, we stand at the beginning of something unprecedented. For the first time in galactic history, species young and old will work together as true equals. This will not be easy. There will be disagreements. There will be conflicts. There will be moments when we question whether any of this was worth the effort." He paused, looking around the chamber at the incredible diversity of beings who had gathered here. Creatures of flesh and crystal and pure energy, species that had traveled the stars for millennia, and species that had reached them only decades ago, all of them waiting to hear what he would say next. But I believe it is worth the effort, because the alternative is a galaxy where the strong forever dominate the weak, where young species must beg for permission to exist, where fear and resentment poison every relationship. That is not a future worth having. Daniel took a deep breath. Humanity did not leave this chamber 4 years ago because we were angry. We left because we believed there had to be a better way. We believed that if we were stubborn enough, patient enough, brave enough, we could prove that a different kind of galaxy was possible. Today we begin building that galaxy together. He stepped back from the platform, and this time no one laughed. Instead, the chamber filled with applause. Clicking mandibles and clapping hands and rumbling voices and frequencies beyond human hearing, all joining together in something that sounded almost like hope. The galaxy was changing, and for the first time in a very long time, it was changing for the better.